What is up, YouTube? I'm Devon DaVinci, leader of the Renaissance Crew, and you are watching DaVinci Reacts. Before I get anybody asking this question, because I still to this day get people asking me, what is the Renaissance Crew? The Renaissance Crew is the subscription base, and you can join it by hitting that subscribe button. So if you want to be a part of the Renaissance Crew and be under my leadership, then all you have to do is hit that subscribe button, and welcome aboard. Of course, you can always join the Discord, which is in the description box down below, and you can have direct communication with me, as well as my other moderators and friends and everyone that make this community so fun and great. I have meme channels, I have gaming channels, I have nostalgia channels, I have food channels where people post some of the best looking food I've ever seen in my life. And feel free to check it out. Links in the description down below. Anyway, we're about to get back into a channel that I haven't done a reaction to in a minute. Well, I haven't done a reaction to anything in a minute. But this channel in particular has been a minute since I've done a reaction to, and it is one of my favorite channels. This is TierZoo. This is the Crustacean tier list. So I'm guessing we're talking about like crabs, lobsters, maybe shrimp, and other like shellfish. I don't know if every shellfish is a crustacean or if it's just like crab and lobsters. And I don't know how like much they're going to differentiate between like specific types of crabs and stuff. So not only will this be something that is going to be enjoyable because of the game references and being able to see like what is going to be on which tier, but also it's going to be very informative to me because I don't know a lot about different types of crabs and lobsters and stuff. So we'll go ahead and see. The only thing I know about lobsters is that they live forever, or potentially can live forever. So I look forward to seeing what has to be talked about in here. Another little tidbit that I think I know about lobsters. I think, isn't there a lobster that like has like blue blood, and that blue blood is worth like a lot of money? I could be wrong. I know scorpion venom is worth a lot, and I hope I'm not mixing that up with this, but I could have sworn there was like a blue-blooded crustacean that like that blood is worth a whole lot of money, but I'll have to look into it again. With that being said, let's go ahead and jump into this and see what it has to offer, and I will be checking out more of these types of videos in the future. He's done a couple of them since I've taken my hiatus from doing reactions, so if you want to see more, hit that like button in this video and go in the comment section and let me know which other TierZoo videos you'd like me to do. Anyway, let's check this out. Mantis shrimp. That's one of them. Definitely familiar with mantis shrimps. The thing with mantis shrimps,
crustaceans.
Oh yeah, another thing, I don't know if I have, I still don't have control over my video with the keyboard. So I'm gonna have to use the mouse, go old school and like click the time bar to like go back and forward. But the one thing about mantis shrimps, I don't know if it's just the fact that I'm a guy or whatever, and maybe it's like my toxic masculinity or whatever the hell you want to call it, but you cannot tell me, like other people that's out there, you cannot tell me that the first time you heard someone tell you about like a mantis shrimp and its like capabilities, you didn't think for just a second, like, I bet I could take it. Like, so come on now, somebody, I'm not the only one that thought this, right? Like when you heard about how strong a mantis shrimp is and how like its shell can like crack a fish tank, and it's like, it hits so hard and so fast that like its punch for just a split second creates a temperature that's almost like surface of the sun level of like degrees, and it's almost like getting shot. That's why they call it like a pistol shrimp. And one of the stronger, you cannot think for a second, I was like, I bet I could take it. Like just for a second, just a little bit.
Are some of the most popular builds in the entire game.
Let me go back a little bit.
Most popular crustaceans are some of the most popular builds in the entire game. In fact, they're so popular that it's become sort of a meme that every player will eventually drop their current character and switch to being a crab main. But just how competitively viable are crustaceans really? Which unique abilities does the Crustacean class make use of that enabled them to become such a resilient force across so many
How
of the
the hell
game's
did he take out all
expansions
of
and
that?
balance patches. And are they actually an optimal build choice in the current meta? Or are they just an easy-to-pilot, low-skill
I gotta
floor
get into
character?
Minecraft.
We'll discuss all this and more.
It seems
as we
like
rank
every
the most
time
notable
I see
builds
more
on the
Minecraft
Crustacean tier
videos,
list.
the more like
This video was
intricate
sponsored by
people's
GiveWell.
stuff is.
Before
I didn't
we get
even
into
realize
the tier list,
some of the
let's
stuff
first
you can
discuss
create in
the
Minecraft.
Crustacean faction's general game strategy and the key abilities they use to accomplish it. Crustaceans are part of the larger faction of arthropods, and so crustaceans inherit all of the main perks of the arthropod class. The most important one, of course, is their exoskeletal armor, which provides a huge defense boost. Given that most crustaceans have to contend with some of the most dangerous builds in the game, this extra protection is crucial to their viability.
He's
Their
actually
carapace,
fighting with a
which
weapon.
is the thickest, sturdiest, and most important link in their armor, can block attacks from seabird beaks, fish jaws, and many of the other threats common in aquatic environments. It does, however, have the same weakness as all exoskeleton-type builds, which is that their defense stat drops drastically for a short time when leveling up. If their armor ever does fail them,
Melting.
this doesn't immediately mean game over. Crustaceans have the
Not melting.
incredible ability to
Molting,
regenerate
I think it's
HP
called.
after taking damage, even being able
Very
to
similar to
regrow
spiders.
entire limbs. So even something as devastating as losing a claw or a leg isn't something crustaceans
just adding
can't
to the
recover
stew.
from, and in fact can be the optimal play to distract an opponent and escape a fight. This ability makes crustaceans a very beginner-friendly build, as you can make a lot of mistakes and still progress through your playthrough relatively unhindered. Crustaceans also have
It's funny, and I don't know if he like might go into this in the video, which he probably isn't. But I'm somebody that has a bit of a arachnophobia. It's something I've had for since I was a kid. It's a lot less weak than it is now. Like now, only thing that really gets me about spiders is whenever you see those pictures of like the jumping spiders like really close up. And even then, I'm starting to like get over that because I'm watching a lot of videos and stuff about spiders. And when you look at channels like Lair Exotic, I think it's called, and he like goes over his spiders and things, and you see like videos of jumping spiders and kind of how cute they are, because like they're some of the like least dangerous spiders out there, and they're rather curious and don't really bite and things like that. So I'm starting to get over the whole like big-eyed spider thing. The ogre spider still creeps me out. It's creeping me out though to this day. Still, the creepiest damn thing I've ever seen is the ogre spider's face. But and a wolf spider. Wolf spiders also get me. Anything with those big giant like two eyes on the front is kind of like it's kind of creepy. But I'm starting to get over it. But what I was about to say is, I wonder if he's going to get into like why for some reason people that are like scared of spiders aren't scared of crabs, even though they're kind of the same. I mean, they're not exactly the same, but they look the same. Matter of fact, they should be worse because it's like crabs are like spiders if you gave them claws on top of the 8 legs and stuff. But for some reason, crabs just don't have that same stigma tied to them as like spiders do. And I'm just curious about that.
through relatively unhindered. Crustaceans also have uniquely specialized limbs that come to 2 points rather than 1. This makes it super straightforward to stack them into various different specialized opposable claws, which can be optimized for slicing, crushing, piercing, or grappling. I've said in the past that I think crustaceans are a broadly mid-tier class, and I think this still holds up. Crustaceans have a lot of interesting tools at their disposal, but due to their middle-of-the-road stat spread, they are constantly fighting an uphill battle against the many high-tier threats they need to contend with, and have to play things perfectly to not get run over in these matchups. So, let's see how the individual crustacean builds fare and get into the tier list.
Barnacle.
Starting us off in F tier, we have the Barnacle. The Barnacle is a crustacean build with an almost completely AFK strategy. As a barnacle larva, you find a spot and then attach to it and filter feed for the rest of your playthrough. Now, I'm not dunking on players who enjoy idle games. I'm a fan myself. However, this strategy does have some major flaws.
Is this man
Despite
just called mine,
have the highest defense stat of any crustacean, the survivability of the barnacle is entirely contingent on their choice of parking space. Barnacles can attach to just about any surface, from ship hulls to cement walls, to whales and even other crustaceans. Choosing a spot on a non-living surface leaves the barnacle vulnerable to predators. As high as their defense stat may be, there are plenty of builds that are willing to invest in anti-shell defense abilities, like the acidic attacks of the starfish or the drilling attacks of the whelk snail, neither of which are uncommon on the reefs and coastlines that barnacles call home. But if they opt for a living host, which is easier said than done by the way, then their survivability is completely tied to the survival of their host, a tenuous gambit in a metagame as hostile as the ocean server. Whales are a pretty safe choice, but opportunities to secure real estate on a whale are few and far between. Much more likely you'll need to settle for property on the shell of another crustacean, which, as we'll see later on this list, is quite a gamble. Personally, I'd say if you want to play
I've seen
a
that
mostly
exact
AFK
video of the
marine
guy
build,
breaking
opt for the scout,
the barnacles.
as you'll still get to chill and filter
thing.
feed most of the time, but can still escape if need be.
The shrimp.
Also in F tier, we have the shrimp. Now, shrimp are a super diverse group with a ton of interesting strategies, but in general, shrimp
I love the
make very
gaming
poor
music.
use of the crustacean
Give me
build's
more,
unique
please.
abilities. Broadly speaking, shrimp have weak legs, no eye stalks, and small claws. No eye stalks might seem trivial, but eye stalks are actually a pretty useful ability, allowing a player to take cover in the sand or under the seabed, while still remaining vigilant. Shrimp rely heavily on that same strategy, but because they cannot surveil their surroundings while hiding, a clever predator can easily just wait until they resurface and pick them off. Attacking a shrimp is also a lot less risky than attacking most crustaceans, as their damage-dealing abilities are far worse than the rest of the faction. The
And with the
shrimp's
Kirby
scaled-down
suck.
appendages are a trade-off meant to buff its mobility. Shrimps have spec'd into shorter, flatter legs that increase their aquatic movement speed in a way somewhat reminiscent of a fish's pelvic fins. This is a neat idea that means shrimp can freely swim rather than walking along the ocean floor. But in practice, this kind of just meant that shrimp ended up as the seahorses of the crustacean faction, a tankier but slower moving swimmer that can't adequately defend itself or evade attacks, so it gets bullied by every other nearby player. Shrimp do have one escape ability, in that they can very quickly dash backwards, but this is of course very predictable and exploitable by experienced players. Now, it's important to note that while they may not have the best stats, crafty shrimp mains have been able to reach some level of viability in the meta, either by speccing into debuff cleansing abilities and playing as a predator support class, or by abusing a quirk of the
Becoming
game engine
symbiotic.
which allows them to fire off powerful short-range sonic projectiles called cavitation bubbles that can stun other players. These are both respectable strategies that merit higher tier placement, but as a whole, shrimp are stuck in the bottom tier.
Isopod.
First, in D tier, we've got the
Roly
isopod.
polies.
Other than the barnacle, which literally cannot move, the isopod has the highest base defense stat of any crustacean on this list. Its shell is perfect for deflecting attacks, and when they curl into a ball like an armadillo, there are very few predators that can threaten them unless they're several orders of magnitude larger outright. However, the isopod has essentially no damage-dealing abilities whatsoever. It has no attacks, no poison, nothing to threaten aggressive players with, and so against a persistent attacker, it will essentially always lose. Isopods are a diverse and widely distributed group, with both terrestrial and aquatic variants. The terrestrial variants, known as woodlice, pillbugs, and roly-polies, function
There we go,
very
roly-polies,
similarly
that's
to
how I
miniature
know.
cockroaches, using their flat shape to wedge themselves into hard-to-reach positions, and only leaving the safety of these places in order to scavenge for loot. The larger aquatic variants of the isopod are usually similar in their strategy, but can also opt for a parasitic playstyle, where they actually fuse with a fish player,
It's the ones
destroying
that
and
eat the fish's
replacing
tongues.
tongue. This parasitic strategy is great for farming XP and is super AFK, but does come with pretty much all the same risks I mentioned about the barnacle. If the fish gets attacked and defeated, the isopod usually goes down with the ship. Technically, if given the chance, they could detach and escape, but in the
Oh,
marine
boy.
meta, chances like that are quite rare,
That is
and without a host,
nightmare-inducing.
they're likely to just get picked off anyway. Not the worst crustacean, but it's leaving
The
a lot
bastard
on the
jumps
table
too.
not making use of the crustacean's highly customizable
These animals,
form.
man. Too many animals can jump.
Next in D tier, we have the crayfish, also known as the crawdad. This is a smaller variant of the lobster subclass, which mainly sticks to freshwater servers. This
I don't
means
see how the
that
hell you eat
unlike the
crawfish.
lobster, which needs to be
Not
prepared
like
to contend with the
they're
likes
nasty,
of sharks,
but
octopus, eels, and the multitude
literally, I
of
have no
dangerous
idea how
threats
you actually
find
eat
in
them.
the ocean
I've seen
server.
people
The
suck on
worst
them and
things a crayfish might run into
I know that's
would
not what you
probably
do
be
with them,
something
so-
like a turtle or largemouth bass. And yet, even in this much less punishing environment, crayfish still underperform. They have solid matchups against frogs, which is true of essentially every other build in existence as well, and they can sometimes hold their own against freshwater fish due to their armor, but pretty much anything beyond that
All you have to do is be
begin to struggle.
big enough to
They
not
don't have claws that are
get,
anywhere
like,
near as powerful as some of the other crustaceans
essentially
on this list.
swallowed by a
And
damn
so
frog,
when
and you
confronted
can-
with an adversary,
you're
they
not a
often lose
threat
if
to
they
them.
can't
Or
escape.
they're not a threat to
Their
you.
only real advantage is that their smaller size opens up a lot of additional options to where they can run for cover and hide, as they can fit into very small openings between rocks and debris on a riverbed. However, because they often aggregate so close to the shoreline, they're vulnerable to being picked off by birds, whose pinpoint precision strikes can hit them even in partial cover. Without proper offensive capabilities, they'll always find themselves outclassed by their more powerful relative. A build which I think we've name-dropped enough times already to just go ahead and move on
The
to.
lobster.
First in C tier, we have the lobster.
Donkey Kong
Lobsters
Country.
are a solid marine tier build with lots of strengths, the most obvious of which
Hold
is
on,
their
time. I gotta address this. How the hell can you go into the Donkey Kong music but not use aquatic ambience? How? How is that? It's right there. Just use aquatic ambience. It's one of the greatest tracks Donkey Kong has ever given us. And you're doing a video related to water. Give us the aquatic ambience, please. Maybe I'm being premature. It might
obvious
appear.
of which is their incredibly large and powerful claws, which grant the lobster one of the highest grip strengths in the entire game, able to easily crush through the defenses of just about any other player and inflict devastating damage in the process. This is excellent for
100
defense
pounds of
and
force.
also for taking control of an objective or point of interest on the seafloor. Similar to shrimp, lobsters also have fairly decent mobility, although the only direction they can move quickly is directly backwards. This is all quite solid, however, the lobster does have its own share of weaknesses in addition to the standard crustacean weaknesses. This backward mobility is fairly limiting, and means that attacking a lobster from behind often leaves them with very little counterplay options, as their claws cannot reach backwards, and if they try to use their burst mobility
Just
option,
took his leg,
their only
like,
choice
it's
will be to
mine
move
now.
directly towards you, unless they slowly reposition themselves so that their back faces away from the threat. Now, this is in contrast to the next build on our list, which I think is a bit more versatile in its mobility.
The true
Next
crabs.
in C tier, we finally arrive at the crab build, the poster child for the crustacean class.
Didn't
and one of
realize
the
there
most
was
reliable
an
and
animal
consistent
based on a damn
mid-tiers in the
fallacy.
entire game. Crab claws are extremely customizable, able to be optimized for whatever best suits the current meta. Some spec into smaller, more precise claws that enable to capture small prey more easily. Some spec into sharp-edged claws used for slashing at soft-bodied opponents, such as cephalopods. And some opt for pointed claws, perfect for jabbing at pesky fish who can't mind their business. However, the thing that really sets crabs apart from other crustaceans is that they've opted not
sounded
to spec
oddly
into
personal.
the Pleon trait.
I'm guessing the
Pleon
narrator
is
for
rear
this
abdomen seen on
series
most
is
other
a
crustaceans
crab
we've discussed
in
so far.
disguise.
It's the tail part which allows shrimp and lobsters to use that special burst mobility option. The trade-off, though, is that the Pleon vastly increases their hurt box and functions as a weak point. In order to have the flexibility required to give them that quick movement, it can't be as heavily armored as the rest of them. So, while crayfish, shrimp, and lobsters fold pretty quickly when being attacked from behind, crabs can usually just shrug it off. However, just because they can't dash backward instantly like other crustaceans can, doesn't mean crabs are immobile. Instead, crabs focus on lateral mobility,
That thing was
which
moving.
turns out is often much more useful for dodging attacks. They can quickly swim or dash to the left or right when needed, and although this might not be as impressive as the lobster's dash, it's still often enough to save their life anyway. Now, I don't want to give you the impression that I think crabs are at all overpowered. They still get bodied plenty, especially by builds that spec into high intelligence. But the strategy that goes into optimizing your character's hurt box is not something I think we should overlook, as that actually is a pretty high level play.
Hermit crab.
First, in B tier, we have the hermit crab. Now, unlike basic crabs, hermit crabs do have a Pleon, which they need to protect by scavenging and equipping the shell of a defeated snail player. Technically, this means they aren't true crabs, but what really matters is that this ability is busted. It allows them to match the defense stat of the barnacle while retaining their ability to move. And on top of all that, the shells themselves can be augmented with extra perks, courtesy of sea anemone players. And using this combo, hermit crabs can add a toxic sting to their defense too. I won't spend too much time on hermit crabs because I've already got a full video about them, but just understand that they've turned the main weakness of the false crab crustaceans into a major strength.
And they can put
The large
things on the
variant
shell
of the
to make
hermit
it more
crab,
stealthy.
the coconut crab, can actually reach such giant sizes that it surpasses the need for a protective shell, since there's essentially nothing that's able to threaten it. And by dropping the heavy shell,
know those were
they
hermit
gain
crabs.
the ability to climb, which can allow them to even turn the tables on bird mains, which normally have an oppressive matchup against crustaceans.
Look at me. I am the high tier now.
Next in B tier we have the copepod. Now, this may seem
He
like
never
a
used
weird conclusion on this
aquatic
tier
ambience,
list,
did he?
as I usually don't discuss builds from the microbe weight class, but copepods really do deserve a mention, as they pretty much have the entire zooplankton metagame on lock. They're one of
Wait,
the
are
most
water
numerous
bears
builds
part
in
of the
entire game,
crustacean
and can survive
family?
almost anywhere due to a multitude of elemental resistances.
Would they
They're
make
almost like water bears
S
in a
tier?
way, except in addition to being quite durable, they're also easily the most mobile of all plankton builds.
Yeah, I'm wondering if they'll be
Most
S tier
other
also.
zooplankton only start out in that weight class, using their microscopic size to avoid detection from larger predators. However, as they level up, they increase in size and phase out of the planktonic metagame entirely. However, while in their planktonic stage, they're usually not super competitive, as they've spent all of their evolution points on abilities that they only unlock later on.
Well, water bears
Copepods,
can
on
be
the
S
other
tier.
hand, are
Like,
fully optimized to
outside
max
of the
out their viability
extremes
against
of like
other
temperature
zooplankton,
and stuff,
and thus completely dominate
everything
the
else
meta in that
can still
space.
easily kill them.
They're not completely invincible, of course, and do often get taken down by colonial microbes, such as the Portuguese man-o-war and its relatives. But among free-roaming zooplankton, copepods reign pretty much uncontested in their niche. This is especially problematic for human mains, because copepods also ally with Vibrio bacteria to gain the bioluminescence ability, but can also transmit the deadly disease cholera.
Mantis
And at the top of our
shrimps.
list, in A tier, we have the mantis shrimp. The mantis shrimp is famously one of the most stacked builds the game has
It's
ever
at the top
seen,
of the
at
list.
least when it comes to offense. Instead of the standard crustacean grappling claws,
So there's no
mantis
S
shrimp
tier,
opt for either raptorial blades or bludgeoning clubs,
crustaceans?
which they can swing with truly unparalleled strength. These attacks deal devastating damage to any player unlucky enough to be caught on the receiving end, and in many cases these attacks result in a one-hit kill. Now, the mantis shrimp has a lot of hype and attention surrounding it, with a lot of players decrying the mantis shrimp as OP and broken and so on. The hype around its power stat is absolutely deserved. However, we can't forget that this build has a body plan roughly similar to the build that I've rated second lowest on this tier list. Their large, less heavily armored Pleon sticks out quite far from their carapace, which can leave them vulnerable to ambush attacks, just like a regular shrimp or lobster, which is not an uncommon occurrence given their lack of camouflage. In addition, their small fins and small legs don't exactly translate to a high mobility stat, which is why, despite the fact that they're packing incredible heat, mantis shrimp usually only hunt the absolute slowest of prey: clams, scallops, and snails. This isn't a bad thing at all. In fact, I think the existence of a proper tank buster build is healthy for the overall metagame. But I do think the power of the mantis shrimp gets exaggerated a lot on forums and discussion boards. Abilities like being able to see color and polarize light in a unique way, or the bonus sonic damage effect their punches create, these are fun little quirks, but I don't think they significantly affect the mantis shrimp's place on the tier list. Give them running legs and the ability to breathe on dry land, and we'd probably need to start discussing a ban though. Overall, I think crustaceans are in a solid spot in the current meta. Not overpowered, but not to be underestimated either. Crustaceans and insects are closely related, and are the most successful factions within
But where does the
arthropod
crab
class,
that knows how
so
to
it's only
use
natural
knives
they'd constantly be
fit
compared
on the
against
tier
each other.
list?
Insects are far more dominant on
I've seen
land,
enough of those
whereas
to
crustaceans reign supreme in the water.
feel like they've
Though they're similar
a decent
in many
understanding
ways,
of tool
insects
use.
have a lot of unique abilities that crustaceans do not, such as venom, eusociality, and most importantly, flight. Meanwhile, most of the important abilities we see in crustaceans are also found in the insect faction. Sturdy defensive armor, the ability to equip shells of defeated tanks, quick burst mobility, regenerating limbs. These are all things insects can do too. I will give credit where it's due though. Crustaceans do have an edge when it comes to that regen perk I mentioned. Insects can regenerate every time they molt, but insects actually stop molting once they reach their level cap, and can no longer regenerate after that. This coincides with insects getting their wings, which is kind of paradoxical because it means their most fragile feature is also the only feature they can never regenerate. Crustaceans, by contrast, continue to molt and regenerate even after reaching their full potential, reinforcing the idea that crustaceans are a more beginner-friendly build. Crustaceans are arthropods, one of the most diverse factions in the game. And while many are important parts of their ecosystems, many others, including the copepods mentioned in this video, can carry diseases. These diseases can devastate communities that don't have the infrastructure to prevent them, and unfortunately, these same communities are often the ones least equipped to fight off these same diseases. It's the season of giving, and if you're anything like me, you want to help but worry that your
I know this is
donations
an
go
ad.
much
We
further
watch
and
the
do a
ads
lot
on
more
this channel.
good if used in the most efficient way. This is where today's sponsor, GiveWell, comes in. GiveWell was founded to help donors with that exact dilemma. They pore over independent studies and charity data to help donors direct their funds to evidence-backed organizations that are saving and improving lives. For example,
so
on
you can
GiveWell,
feel free to
I was
skip
able
it
to
yourself,
find that one of
or
the best ways to prevent malaria,
you can
the disease transmitted by another arthropod,
go to the outro,
mosquito,
or
is to donate
even jump to the next video. But
providing nets and medicine to
I try my best
communities
to
in
make sure I
sub-Saharan
watch all
Africa,
the
where malaria is
sponsorships and
present.
ads.
I even learned it costs on average $5 per person to provide them a net, and $7 to provide them the medicine, when done efficiently. GiveWell has now spent over 15 years researching charitable organizations and only directs funding to a few of the highest impact opportunities that they've found. Over 100,000 donors have used GiveWell to donate more than $1 billion. Rigorous evidence suggests that these donations will save over 150,000 lives and improve the lives of millions more. GiveWell wants as many donors as possible to make informed decisions about high-impact giving. You can find all of their research and recommendations on their site for free. You can make tax-deductible donations to their recommended funds or charities, and GiveWell does not take a cut. If you've never donated to GiveWell's recommended charities before, you can have your donation match up to $100 before the end of the year or as long as matching funds last. To claim your match,
I'm just sitting here vibing to the music. I love video game
music. Enter
music.
TierZoo at checkout.
It sounds like something from a Final Fantasy
you
game.
heard about GiveWell from TierZoo to get your donation.
I'm sure it's from an RPG. I don't think it's Final
Again,
Fantasy, but it reminds me of a
donate
Final
or find
Fantasy.
out more. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.
All right, let me go back to. I'll stop the video at the GiveWell thing right here. That way, you can pause it right now and see if you do want to help out the cause. But yeah, so I've learned a bit about crustaceans. It seems like he didn't really go into detail about like the different like species names and types of crustaceans as far as like crabs and stuff are concerned. I don't know if like true crab is the like official term for those types of crabs, or if there's different types. Like I know there's some crabs that have like a really big arm, then there's other ones that just have the 2 arms. Then there was some that have like the really long like claws, and like I don't know if those are different species or just different types of the same crab. So I was hoping to get like some more information about that, but I don't think that ever really came through. And again, I don't know if water bears are considered crustaceans. There was a little mention of them, but there was no like indicator of whether or not they were a part of that same like family. I do think that like if they were part of the tiers, I think that they're a bit overrated because like they can survive in such like extreme temperatures, and they can survive in a vacuum of space and radiation and things like that. People associate them with like being indestructible or something, but it's like not really. Like if something wants to eat them, for example, it's not really too tough for a predator to eat a water bear. Like it's not hard. It's kind of like they expected all their abilities into like the extreme aspects of survival instead, but forgot to like boost up their basic survival things. So it seems on paper like they're indestructible, but yeah, all something has to do is just grab it and just bite it or something, and it's done. But yeah, so I've been a bit informed in this. If you've been enlightened, then feel free to go to that comment section. Let me know what you thought about this video. Again, he has other TierZoo videos. If you want to see me check those out, be sure to leave a comment in the description box, or not description box, in the comment section down below. You can put a hashtag DaVinci Reacts in your comments somewhere, and that way I can like filter it out when I'm going through my comments and seeing where the requests are. That's usually the indicator I have when someone has a request for me. Anyway, I look forward to seeing you guys in the next video. Until then, I'm Devon DaVinci, and again, I hope you've been enlightened. I'm gonna give you the deuces, and I'll see you next time. Peace.